Hello, this is Mrs. Pickett, and we are going to take notes over lesson 1.6. So make sure you've either printed this out so that you can follow along and fill in, or jot down the examples that we do together on your notebook so that you can turn that in for me. So we're going to take notes over lesson 1.6. You will have to answer a little flip grid question when you're done to let me know that you've watched the videos, and then make sure you come into class ready to work on your entree, okay? So distributive property we've been talking about when we went over our properties. So hopefully you remember that the distributive property says anytime you have a number or a variable on the outside of parentheses, so you have a term, so if we look over here, I'm going to highlight in yellow here. So this A is on the outside of the parentheses that we are going to distribute. That means that you're going to like spread out or hand out, kind of, that's what distribute means. So we're going to distribute this variable on the outside to everything that's on the inside. Now, when we do this, we're going to use multiplication to distribute, okay? So like here, we would be taking A times B, so that would give me AB, plus, then I would have to come back and do A times C, which would give me AC, okay? That's your distributive property. You can do the same thing if it's subtraction. I'm going to take the outside term, so in this case A, I'm going to multiply A times B, which would just be AB. So if you're multiplying two variables together, you just multiply them together, just write them next to each other. And then it would be minus, if I do A times C, would just be AC, okay? So we're going to just try a couple examples. I'm not going to do all of these with you, but we'll do some to make sure. So let's start with a pretty basic one. So 7 is on the outside, so I'm going to distribute this through. So I'm going to do 7 times x, which is just 7x, and then 7 times 4, which is going to give me plus 28. Now remember, we just learned about like terms yesterday. This would be my answer. I cannot combine 7x plus 28 because they are not like terms. I have a variable term with 7x and then a constant with 28, so we would stop there and that would be my answer, okay? Let's look at number 3. So over here on number 3, we have a negative 4 on the outside, so we're going to distribute that through. So negative 4 times y would give us a negative 4y. Negative 4 times 3 is going to give me a negative 12. So I get negative 4y minus 12. Remember, you do not have to do plus and negative anymore. You can just write the sign that goes with it. Whether you read that as plus negative 12 or minus 12 is the same, okay? Let's jump down. Let's look at number 7. So I have a negative 4 on the outside again. Now I'm going to take negative 4 times negative w. So you need to remember, a negative times a negative makes a positive. So, this is going to give me a positive 4w. And then the same thing, negative 4 times a negative 10, or that minus 10, is going to give me a plus 40. Okay, so a negative times a negative makes a positive. Let's look at number 9. Still have just a single term on the outside, so a constant, negative 3. I'm going to multiply. Now I have negative 3 times the 2x, so you're going to multiply the numbers together. So negative 3 times 2, that's going to give me negative 6x. Your variables always just kind of follow along. They just attach. You never change your variables when you're doing distributive property like this, okay? In this instance, you're just multiplying the numbers and the x is just attached. And then we do negative 3 times negative 4, so a negative times a negative is going to make a positive 12. Okay? Let's jump down to 13, so I'm going to move this up a little bit here. So now on the outside we have a 6a, so we have a variable term on the outside, not just a constant anymore. So now when I multiply 6a times b, that's just going to be 6ab. All right? You just write the variables right next to each other. Same thing here, plus, then I'm going to do 6 times 2, which is 12, and then my variables are a and c. You do not change anything, we're just multiplying them together. Let's look at number 15. So now if we do x times 2y, that's going to give me 2yx or 2xy. How you write that, that doesn't matter. And then I'm going to multiply here. X times the negative 5z is going to give me a negative 5zx. and then x times the 1 is going to give me a plus x. And that would be it. That's where I would leave it because they're not like terms, so you cannot combine them. All right, let's jump down and look at 16 now. So now we have a fraction on the outside. Remember, you have a couple options here. You can either set these up as a fraction inside, put them over 1. You can also cross cancel if you want to do that and simplify it out a little bit. Whatever works best for you, I'm okay with. So here, I know if I have a 1/4 on the outside, I know that 4 will go into itself one time and 4 will go into 8 twice, okay? So we could simplify that right there, 1/4 times 8x. So 1 times 2, that's going to give me a 2x because the bottom is just 1 times 1. Same thing, I can cross cancel my other term. 4 goes into itself once, 4 goes into itself once here. And so now when I distribute that, I'm just getting 1 times 1. So you would get 2x minus 1. Now, if you are not comfortable with cross canceling, I can show you the long version. So let's say we're going to multiply this out. So I'm going to take 1/4 times the 8x over 1. So that's my first step. So we multiply straight across. And that's going to give me 8x over 4. And then you can simplify this way because you should know that 8 divided by 4 gives you a negative 2x, okay? Same thing if you do the next term, 1/4 times the negative 4. So now I'm going to do 1/4 times negative 4 over 1. Multiply straight across. So this is going to give you a negative 4 over 4, which simplifies to negative 1. So we had a 2x minus 1. It's the same thing. The same answer that I got when I cross-canceled, negative 2x minus 1 would be your answer there. Okay, working with some fractions. Let's do, so I'm just going to clean this up. So we had a negative 2x minus 1, just so you remember the answer. And we'll look at 18. We'll do one more here. So now I'm going to multiply the negative 1/8 times the 4/5. So I'm going to cross cancel so I have some smaller numbers. Like I know that 4 will go into itself one time and 4 goes into 8 twice. So now if I multiply that first term, negative 1 times 1, so I'm going to get a negative 1, and then 2 times 5 is 10. So I get negative 1/10 x. And then the same thing if I cross cancel. Let me clean this up here. 24 and 8, okay, so now if I'm looking at that, 8 will go into itself one time, and it goes into 24 3 times. So when I take negative 1/8 times the negative 24, if I simplify it, now it just looks like a negative times a negative, which is a positive. 1 times 3 is 3. And that would be your answer, okay? Let's jump down. So distribute and combine. So now that was just distributive property. So now we're going to take what we learned yesterday with combining like terms and our distributive property, and we're going to put them together. So you're going to have to do like order of operations. So you'll solve like using distributive property, and then we're going to combine any like terms, okay? So we're going to do a couple examples. So I'm going to multiply distributive property first. So 8 times 2x is going to give me 16x. Minus 24, and then I have a minus 6x. So now we go through and we look for like terms. So I have 16x minus 6x. Those can go together. 16 minus 6 is going to give me a 10x minus 24, and that would be my answer. Okay. We'll do number 20. So I'm going to take 9 times the 2k. That's going to be 18k. And then 9 times negative 4 is a negative 36. Now this minus 2 here, we have to distribute it to everything. So negative 2 times the 7k is going to give me a negative 14k. And then negative 2 times negative 12 is a positive 24. Okay. Now we're going to look for our like terms. So I have 18k minus 14k. So 18 minus 14 is going to leave 4k. And then we have a minus 36 plus 24. And when you do that, that's going to leave you with a negative 12. So your answer would be 4k minus 12. Okay? So for your flip grid tonight, we're going to stop here. And then for your flip grid, you have the option of doing 21 or 22. So pick one of those to do. So solve it out and then explain it for me on the flip grid. And then we'll do 23 and 24 when you come into class tomorrow. We'll do those together. So if you're having trouble with the fractions, don't worry. I'll show you that in class tomorrow. All right? Have a great night, and I will see you soon.